so much, Gail, and thank you, Alfreda, and thank you so much for joining me here today. I know many of you from around campus, and it's so fun to say hi to everybody, including people over in the law school. One thing I didn't know is that I would be graded on my performance, so now I'm a little more nervous. So I thought what I would do today is I would just tell you a little bit about how I think of the law school and talk about why it's an interesting and exciting experience for me to come back to the law school. As Gail just said, I have taught at a lot of different schools, and I used to teach here back in the early 2000s, then left for about 8 years and came back just last year as dean. So I'm just starting my second year as a dean, which is one reason why this is so much fun. I get to meet you and say hi. It's a way for me to introduce myself to people across the campus, and that's really helpful to me because it's fun to know who people are, to find collaborators. I can say hi across the campus. So I want to tell you a little bit about how I've thought about Washington University School of Law since I first came to think about it. And a lot of people admire the law school, and I do too. We get ranked continually as having some of the most beautiful facilities anywhere in the country, and if you've been inside the building, it's a particularly beautiful facility, but it hasn't always been that way, and the law school has really gone through incredible changes over the course of time. So back when I first started thinking about teaching, I'm a tax lawyer, so I taught tax for quite a few years before moving over to the administrative side and becoming the dean. And back in 1995, Washington University School of Law was recruiting me, and this is where they offered me an office. This is the law school prior to 2000, and it is very stark. The gardens in front of the law school right now were a big parking lot, and to be honest, I wasn't really all that excited about moving into a building like that. Although I do have to say, at the time, the students were interesting. They were kind of partiers. I have arrows where you can see they're smoking, they're drinking. This is in the courtyard. Look at their hair back from the early 90s. And I want to thank Ann Nicholson for helping me find all these pictures. So this is my first introduction to the School of Law. And then, 15, 20, 25 years later, it's become a very different place. So these are a group of our international students and some JDs and LLMs. I'll talk a little bit about that. We have a series of different kinds of degrees, which I'll mention in a few minutes. But now it's a much more buttoned-up operation, this beautiful facility. Maybe we need to relax a little. Probably I could help with that. Lose his coat, maybe. Maybe have your personality, Gail. Gail said at one point that every Friday at noon we should blast really loud music over the loudspeakers throughout the school and have Dance Friday for exactly a minute. And then it just goes quiet. Everybody goes back, does their work. So another thing that's very interesting about the law school is what has happened out in the world in terms of our institutional profile. In 1995, when I was first thinking about coming to the law school, it was ranked as number 49 out of 210 law schools across the country, which is a very fine ranking, but 25 or 30 years later, we're now ranked 18. So it's a very different kind of law school. It has a much greater national and international profile. In fact, we tend to get applications from all 50 states and from countries across the entire world for all of our diverse programming. So it's just a completely different law school now from 95 to 2015. And it's exciting. It's exciting to be over there. But we do have our problems in the law school. And one of the interesting problems that law schools across the country are facing is a dramatic drop in applications. You can't quite see it through this figure, so I'll just tell you that 5 years ago, there were 100,000 people taking the LSAT and 50,000 going to US law schools. Now, in 2015, 50,000 people are taking the LSAT. That's the equivalent of the GRE. You're all nodding your heads. So literally a 50% reduction in the number of people who are interested in law school. 50,000 are taking the LSAT and 40,000 are going to school. Virtually everybody who applies to law school is getting admitted. Very different from a couple years ago. And that has wreaked havoc in the recruitment efforts. We're all recruiting essentially the same students, but it also has had a huge impact on the budget. With so much less interest in law schools, the classes have shrunk, and that means we have had budgetary effects, which those in the law school right now, I'm sure, are kind of knowing what the implications of that was. We had to contract and think about how we're spending resources. So we've done great at Washington University, but we're certainly, like all other law schools, facing some difficulties and hardships that literally everyone across the entire school has weighed in and helped me as a new dean figure out how to address some of these budgetary issues. And I'll talk about that collaborative atmosphere at the law school in a few minutes. Even though we've had these budgetary effects, we've built a lot of really interesting programming that so many of the students are interested in. Here, Geetha Sant is a faculty member at the law school, and she runs an entrepreneurial clinic. Her job is to interview people who are interested in getting free legal advice from the law school, and then decide which of these people the law school can represent. So to just give you a sense of her clinic alone, we have 18 different clinics. Her clinic alone, she has 175 startups who've come to ask for help from her. So that would mean anything from filing the appropriate papers with the state of Missouri, putting together a mission statement, thinking about who should be hired, and to get free legal advice from Geetha Sant and her team, you can't make more than $50,000 a year, your whole company. So there's 175 clients that she has, and then a waiting list of 250 clients. So one thing that's kind of interesting is that St. Louis is becoming the startup kind of atmosphere that has certainly emerged over on the East Coast and on the West Coast. But Geetha is just one, like I said, one clinic out of 18. The law school gives 65,000 hours of free legal services to poor people and people in need around the St. Louis area, and a little bit scattered across other cities as well. So it's a school that's very much devoted to assuring that people get free legal services. So not just educating students, that's part of our mission, but also the service side of our mission. And the clinics are a key way that we're able to do that. So here are some degrees that we offer. The JD is the degree that you need if you want to practice law. And we have several joint degrees. We have a JD MBA with business school, a JD MSW with Brown. We have 9 different joint degree programs. The LLM is a degree for individuals who already have a JD but want a little bit more time to study in a specific area. So we have a tax LLM. I'm a tax lawyer, and people who practice in tax tend to want a little bit more time to study. We have an intellectual property LLM. We have an LLM in US law. So we have over 100 students from around the world who come to study here just to get a sense of what US law is like. And the MLS, that's a master's in law, and that's a degree that's very interesting. I'm going to save that because I think that might be particularly interesting for this group. The JSD is the equivalent of a PhD. So you already have your JD, and you want to study and perhaps write a book. You want a team of scholars to help you. You would enroll in the JSD program. Now the interesting thing about the MLS, it's a relatively new degree, and it's for individuals who don't have any legal training, but want to put their foot into the legal environment. So a lot of HR experts get MLS degrees because it's a way to understand some of the employment law rules, or if you're working, or if you're starting a company, a startup, you might want to get an MLS degree because you'll find out what you need to know about corporations, about intellectual property and patents. So this is a one-year degree, and you can see Ann Nicholson thought to put this up. She pointed out that eligible for staff tuition benefits, FYI. And you can do it part-time or full-time. And the cool thing about this is there's this online option. And so, let's see, I wonder if I could do that. And so you can do it from your own home. A couple years ago, what the law school decided to do was to start a new online program for the LLM degree. So that was the degree where you already have a JD and you want some more training. And we decided, let's try it online. You don't have to come to WashU campus. So what we discovered is people from all over the entire world have enrolled in this online program. One is the general counsel for Google, who lives in Brazil. Another is a member of the Indian Parliament, who literally lives in India. We've had people who were doing human rights activities in Africa who take online courses. So that's why we decided, well, let's put the MLS online, and this is by far our program that's becoming the most popular and is by far showing the most growth. Because I think a lot of people are intrigued, let's find out about law. In fact, what we've had is some people have gotten an MLS and then decided, hey, maybe I'll go to the JD program and actually become a practicing lawyer. I liked it more than I thought. Or you might find out law isn't for me. I like knowing a little bit, but I don't like lawyers. And I'd rather have them working for me rather than, I'd rather hire them than be one. So that's an interesting, I think, feature of the law school that I'm really proud of and excited about. So here are the departments that exist inside the law school. And I have to say, having only been at the law school for a year, I love the staff in the law school. The staff in the law school is an incredible group of people who really understand why being collaborative is important for our success. And we have faced quite a few difficulties since I've been here. And these various different departments have not only recognized why it's important to collaborate across units, but they've actually, the staff members have sua sponte, that's a word we use in the law, it happens naturally. If you get your MLS, you'll be throwing that around. Sua sponte, these collaborative efforts emerge, and I want to talk about one that involves Ann Nicholson, and then another that involves Julio Perez back there. So when I first arrived, the school was very much more a unit-focused school. If you're in your unit, you stay in your unit. But we had some departures inside the law school where some people went to other units of the campus and others left, and due to the budgetary restrictions that I talked about, we couldn't always replace people. So Anne, who is in the marketing and communications area, decided, hey, I still need to do my work. I need to get the dean's New Year's Day video out, circulating to thousands of people. So she goes over to multimedia and web services and creates this fantastic video. And I didn't even say, hey, why don't you go to another unit and see if you can find help. So there was a perfect example of collaboration across units that I think makes the law school particularly effective. And Julio, who's in the finance office, has a lot of skill sets in putting together databases, and our admissions office needed some help with the grand database that was growing. So Julio single-handedly helps put together this new database. It's putting us at an advantage vis-a-vis our admissions process versus other schools. So, and I didn't even ask Julio to do this. It just happened. One day I hear he puts together this great database, and a consulting firm found out about this database and said, hey, I want that database too. So I love cross-unit collaboration because, one, it's fun, but two, I think it makes us all better. And that's something that has emerged in a law school that I could not be more excited about. So when people say, what do you like about working in the law school and what about all these different departments? I always say, I love the hard-working and collaborative atmosphere that has emerged on its own over the course of the last year, because it makes me realize we can accomplish so much more than I ever imagined, and it's fun along the way. And just between all of us, it's also a little bit more fun than dealing with the faculty issues. Don't tell Adrian. So, the staff are much more, hey, let's just get it done, let's go. So I love that. And I know we do have a few openings, so people who are looking for jobs, that would be fun if you apply. here are our students. There's the Bring Your Dog to Work Day once a year where the students bring their dogs, and it's just really fun. I always hope no one gets bitten or anything like that. These dogs seem to like each other. So here, one of the student groups, we have 46 student groups, and they've decided, at least this one, the fitness group, has decided they want to get the faculty, staff, and administrators more active, so they put together a fitness day every year. That takes place in the fall. You can see I'm sort of standing back on this one, not really wanting to take place in the egg transfer. But the kids are laughing and they're having a lot of fun. So it's a fun atmosphere too. And this was created by the students, and the faculty and staff joined as well on this fitness day. And by fitness, what they mean is walking down a corridor with an egg in your mouth, not like too active. And that's it. So thank you very much for inviting me here today. Don't forget, I'm a law professor, so I call on people. That's like my forte.
Questions?
I'm curious, why the decline in interest for law school enrollment? In one thing or a number of factors?
That's the $64,000 question right there. A couple answers have emerged over the course of the last years. The market collapsed in 2008, and a lot of the firm work which was driven by corporations in the economy started shrinking. So firms started hiring fewer students at graduation, and the lack of jobs, of course, then was a signal to those who were thinking about what to do after undergrad. Don't go to law school, the jobs aren't very plentiful. So that was one thing. And the second thing, which is even more interesting, because that collapse, the market collapsed in 2008, the market cycles. We've seen throughout history, the business cycle's up, businesses are doing really well, the cycle's down, there's a contraction, then we're gonna emerge again in a profitable era, and we're starting to emerge. In fact, we're seeing applications maybe bottom out and hopefully start returning. So that's predictable. What's a little less predictable is something interesting has happened in the practice of law, and that is technology now has taken over and replaced lawyers in some of the jobs that were done by a human in the past. So to give you an example, I'm a tax lawyer, and I was involved in a lot of deals that involved two companies merging together. And one thing you have to do when companies merge is you have to do due diligence to find out if you're merging with a company that has some sort of hidden, huge litigation problem where you want to call off the deal. So we would go through, and in rooms a lot like this, we would be surrounded by, and I'm not exaggerating, 100,000 boxes, and you go through every paper. Is there a signal of some sort of environmental crisis that's going to rise that makes us not want to do the merger? Now, all the papers are scanned, and it's done by computer. So a lot of the work that was done by actual lawyers is now being done by the computers. So that contracts the amount of the number of lawyers that you need. So a change in the practice of law combined with the decrease in the market simultaneously. I'll let you call on people, okay?
Yeah,
okay.
Go ahead.
For people that want to pursue a JD degree after MLS, would all their credits transfer into the new JD program?
Oh, that's a great question. I don't know about all their credits, because I don't know if there's some classes in the MLS that aren't part of the typical curriculum that's mandatory, but certainly quite a few of the credits would transfer. So I can't say all for sure, but definitely transfer of credits would happen. Yeah.
And then what are some of the requirements for MLS? Like, there's no LSAT, I'm guessing.
Right. Well, to enroll in the MLS program, there are no requirements. They're literally, it's a very open program, and the whole point of it is to give anybody and everyone a chance to learn a little bit about the law, and sometimes that's all people need. And I can't tell you the range of different types of people that have enrolled, from CEOs who really just need to know something about the law to run their business, to, like I said, nonprofit, to people who do, who run battered women's organizations. You might not want to be the practicing lawyer in that organization, but you need to know something about the law so you can offer protection where necessary. So it's very interesting, the type of people. Human resources, I would say the people who work in human resources organizations are probably the ones who have expressed the largest demand for this MLS. Sherry?
Yeah, my question, Nancy, is for the placements of JDs. Is it more flexible now, what you can do with a JD? Is it still traditionally you're going to a firm and practicing law, or are there other things that you can do with that JD?
Great question. So what can you do with the JD? I would say, well, first of all, you can do almost anything with the JD because, like I just said, so many people need some knowledge of law to go off and do so many different types of work. But I would say most of the JDs who come to law schools are going to a traditional practice of law. And by that, I mean it could be a firm, it could be a nonprofit organization, but it's some practice of law. But what we are seeing, and this is interesting, what we are seeing with the downturn is a much broader vision among the student body in thinking about what they want to do. So some students are literally coming with the idea that they want to go off and be a legislator or a policymaker. So they want to go back to DC and work in Congress. Others have decided, you know, I think I'm going to be a better CEO. And we have quite a few alumni, actually, who work on the business side, not the practice of law side. And because alumni are so involved in recruiting and placing, that's where they're getting that idea. But then there's a long-term vision that students have. And the long-term vision could be they want to be judges. And so you can't just go off and be a judge. A lot of them are interested in teaching law, and so that's a possibility. Most people, unlike in the PhD context, if you only have a JD, it's a little bit harder to go directly into teaching. It does happen. If you have a JSD, which is the equivalent, it's a little bit easier. But the main thing is you're not going to get a job teaching in a law school unless you've published some articles, and so if the JD isn't as well suited as PhDs for that. But it definitely happens, and we cultivate that professional opportunity as well. So it's a very broad picture. Two or three of our students just last year got very interested in helping people in the St. Louis area with immigration issues. And so they literally started their own nonprofit for immigration. Do you remember the name of it? It's MICA. It's called
Yeah.
the
MICA project.
The MICA project.
Yeah, I can't remember what MICA stands for. But these are just two alums. They're graduating. They graduated last year. They're out for 1 year. They're running this whole operation single-handedly. And I met with them just recently, a couple weeks ago, and they have a board of trustees now. They've been getting grants. They come back to me saying, "Hey, we'd really like you to help, give us students. We need externs. They have all this work." And so there's a lot of very interesting things that students are now doing with their JD, and they're being more creative than at least I've seen in the past.
I have just somewhat of a different question. It's so great to see how the rankings have evolved over the last 25 years, and I understand rankings are very multifaceted, but I was just curious, do you know what the law school did in general? Were there any strategies to help push that or put in place to help ensure that you rose in the rankings over the years?
Well, that was a real effort across a lot of different eras, and certainly deans and staff members. The real jump in WashU Law School came when there was a dean hire in 1999, Joel Seligman. He got a lot of attention, and right around then, the school jumped from, by that time it had been in the late 30s, and it jumped to the mid-25s. And then over the course of 2000 to 2015, just inch by inch, almost, just lockstep, the school kept moving and advancing. And part of that is just really a focused effort on the recruiting on the faculty side, on the student side, making sure that we do what goes on internally is doing incredibly well, like the institutional profile. This is where a lot of Ann Nicholson's work comes into play, getting the word out there. And I would say probably the biggest issue that the law school faces now that I think might be holding us back, well, one, it's really hard to continue the trajectory once you get into the top 20, because now we're talking hardcore competition. It's all hardcore competition, but everybody is watching every little inch. But I would say, I came from LA when I came to be dean. I was out at University of Southern California, as Gail said, and an interesting comment that I got is, oh, great, you're going to WashU Law School to be dean. Can you get my kid into undergrad? And I think there's a disconnect in terms of our institutional profile vis-a-vis the wider, the med school and the undergrad. And so that's something that we've been talking a lot about, Ann Nicholson and I, how we can reach different pieces or different groups of people across the country, because we have something really great here. We get a lot of attention from people who know us, but we still could tap in maybe to others.
I think you raise an interesting point there, because with the MLS program and the undergraduate program, is there an opportunity for undergraduates to do a joint undergraduate master program, because that is offered with a lot of other schools throughout the system?
Yes, well, we do have the, I don't know exactly, every school calls it something different. The 3+3, I'm looking back at you, Mark. The 3+3 program, what do we call it? Something here? Where you can.
For the law school?
Yeah.
I don't think we do a 3+3, but we do, you guys have we call it for WashU undergrad, so they don't have to take the LSAT.
Well, there's that, but we do have a 3+3 program. We just haven't been using it very much. So that's a program that allows students to get a BA and a JD in 6 years rather than the 7 years. What Mark Smith was just mentioning is, and unfortunately, I think this is going away, the ABA just had a vote on exactly this question that Mark Smith just brought up. We've had a special, unique program that's really been great for the law school, which is if you go to WashU undergrad, you can go to the law school without taking the LSAT, which is a huge advantage, because who wants to sit around taking the LSAT? And the ABA just this week voted on whether schools who do that can continue it, and I think I don't know yet, I'm hoping it doesn't go away. But that's been a real advantage and a great recruitment tool, because we have great undergrads here and we want them to come to our law school, and if it's between two similar schools but you have to take the LSAT in one, why? Yeah. So that's been something that's very unique. And Mark and a lot of people have helped us reach out to the undergrads to try to get the undergrads. Tamara King has helped us a lot as well to connect with the undergrads and get information to the undergrads so that they could perhaps come over to the law school and enroll if they feel like it, either the MLS or the JD.
Do we have any more questions?
Okay, so
Lisa.
here's
Hi, Lisa.
My daughter is a rising senior and is looking forward to careers, and I know that there are some careers that when you fall in love with them, you just have to expect that you're not going to make a lot of money. But I wonder if she wanted to do social justice as a lawyer, is there a whole range? Is she going to be a poor adult? Is she going to be moderate enough?
Would you always be living in my basement?
You're a good corporate lawyer. You're a very wealthy person. What if you're a social justice person as a lawyer? What does that, if you know, what does that look like?
Well, if she's interested in money, it would be a lot smarter to go to Wall Street, to Cravath, Swain & Moore, and have a starting salary of about $175,000 a year. So that would be the way to go. If she's into social justice, definitely it's not going to be that starting salary, I guarantee you that. It's going to be much lower. I was just looking at this data. The average starting salary from WashU Law School, where you go into social justice, I think it's about in the $55,000 range, 55 to 60. But it's never really even going to get close to the corporate side. and it could even be somewhat lower than that, depending on where you're working and what type of organization. So if you go to an established organization, the ACLU, you probably have a different pay scale than if you go to MICA, the new immigration. You're probably not even getting 20,000 there. So it's really going to depend. And then, you know, it also depends if you go the government or not. Some people are really interested in doing public interest work in the government, like defense work, criminal defense work. So you get paid a little bit more there, and the possibility of promotion with a higher pay scale exists in the government. So she doesn't have to imagine a life with a teeny salary if she goes into social justice, but it's going to be on that end of the compensation. But she'll feel good about herself every single day. And maybe she'd be interested in working in the law school. Like I said, we have this huge clinic with 18 different clinical opportunities. All of those clinics are social justice-oriented clinics. You might have a different view about the entrepreneurial clinic. That's not exactly the same as helping juveniles and helping people in need when they face criminal prosecutions. But there, you could go into a law school. All the law schools have clinics. You could do social justice work on that side, and you could be a law professor, or you could be a full-time lawyer, or even a part-time lawyer in the law schools. And every law school has social justice-oriented clinics.
Many of us are still trying to decide what we want to do when we grow up in terms of a career path. And I'd like to know, when did you decide that you wanted to be a dean? And what is a typical day like for a dean?
Good question. Okay. So I first was a practicing lawyer, a tax lawyer, and I ended up, I loved it, but I decided I wanted to teach. And when I went into teaching, I had this incredible fear of getting in front of the classroom. I mean, oh my gosh, I hated getting in front of the classroom. So I thought, well, I'll just stay for a few years and see what I think. And I started doing committee work because I like committee work. And I just love working in groups. That's why I love the collaborative nature of the law school. And I realized, oh, this is so much more fun than teaching. Like working in groups and collaborating. And being a dean is like just being the chair of one big committee. And so I did more and more committee work. I'm always like, yeah, I'll do that committee, I'll do that committee. And so I just liked the administrative side more. So I would say just within a couple years of being a law professor, I thought I want to go to the administrative side. But you can't just jump over. You have to get tenure, and then people have to sort of think you're good at it. But like I said, if you do a lot of committee work, you do get recognition for that sort of administrative side. So early on, I think I decided, but then I would say it took a good 10 years. And frankly, I got a PhD really late in life, so I got a BA and a JD, kind of the typical approach where BA, whatever age you are. How old are you when you get your BA? 22 or something? Your kid is about to graduate, Lisa, back there. How old is she?
Oh, high school, she's 17.
Oh, 7. Oh, she's high school. How old are the graduates?
22.
22? Okay, so then like 28 you had your JD. And then I would say, at one point I realized I'm going to have a much greater chance of getting a really good administrative position if I have a PhD. So I decided to get my PhD at 40. And man, that was painful. I was surrounded by a bunch of 27-year-old really smart people. And they were just, I was like just working hard to keep up. But then after that, it became easier to jump to the administrative side because in the dean world, that's a good degree to have. So I would say I thought about it and worked towards the goal for 10 years.
Did you have a mentor to guide you, or did you figure this all out on your own?
Well, I always study people I want to be. And I look at how they interact interpersonally, like look at their CV, and kind of try to emulate. So I didn't have a particularly good mentor in terms of just one person, but I would say throughout my career, I didn't hesitate to ask for advice, and people would always give it. And in fact, anybody, I have an open door, anybody who wants to come to my office, talk about anything, I love it. I love that sort of thing. So I would say, if you're trying to figure out where to go, what you want to do, definitely reach out, especially around here at WashU. At least I've gotten the feel over the course of time that I've been here that people are very open, especially if you're interested in progressing and what should you do, and or just even brainstorming. But it was definitely a long, and when the WashU deanship opened up, when I was in LA, my partner, Lee Epstein, who's in political science and law, Lee said, "Oh, you gotta go for it, go for it, go for it, let's get back there." And I really thought it was a long shot. So I'm so excited that I get to be back here. So, I mean, the other piece of it is Hillary Clinton once said, dare to compete. And that's how, at least I think about it. It's really hard to put yourself up for a job because you're gonna get smacked down most of the time and you're not gonna be good enough for it, but I just feel like, well, we may as well try and let someone else tell us we're not good enough and then move to the next opportunity. So that's how I think about it.
And I think really in part that for us, we may not be all looking for the deanship, right, of a school, but we're all looking to move to our next position. And that is really great advice, you know. It's setting for yourself a career professional path that you want to travel and finding people in the positions that you want to be at, you know, and networking with them, reaching out to them to see, you know, so what does your job entail and how did you get there? Finding out the stories that got them to their positions as well will help you along the path that you want to travel upon to get to that position. And it may be that you realize, you know what, I thought I wanted to do this, but nah, I don't really want to do this. So the more you network, the more people you meet, the more stories you hear, the more you listen, the more experience you get, it is going to help you develop professionally.
Yeah.
So if we have no more questions, or are there any more questions?
I have one comment to say on that one.
Yeah.
So along those same lines, I can tell you from my perspective, and so many of you have your own perspectives because I know you all lead teams, but I can tell you from my perspective, we have 80 staff members in the law school, and I'm always looking for the type of person who is, when I'm thinking about promotions and just advancing people, or frankly, even raises, I'm always looking for the person who is the steady person who you know is just always there and really reliable, but also the person who's proactive, like goes just a little bit further than what you asked for. And it's not like then that person does something that you didn't ask for, because sometimes it could be really out of the wheelhouse. So you want, what I like is someone who's proactive and who thinks of new things outside of the wheelhouse, but then says, hey, do you think this would be a good idea? And they sort of run it past me. And then you start realizing, oh wow, this person is not only doing their job, but trying to think how to do the job better. Because it's hard for someone like me to know how to best do the job, because I'm not in the job. So when someone comes to me and actually helps me understand how to do it better, I think I need that person. That person is good. And a lot of times, staff members, and we have examples here in this room, have literally come to me and said, hey, you know, have you ever thought about doing this? Because this could really be great for the school. And they'll think of things for me. And I love that, because it helps me know how to do my job better. So you have to be a little careful on that one. For me, FYI, I love that, so keep it coming. You have to know your own boss, but the proactive side, I feel 100% certain that bosses like it when you go just a little bit beyond and have an idea that they couldn't have thought of on their own. And so that'll help with advancement and promotion. In fact, there is someone at the law school, and this is a person who has a job that isn't very well known. It's a quiet job. It's not a high-profile job. But this person went so far and above in some of our recent events that I just wrote a letter, walked down to her little cubicle and said, you have to have a raise. So, and then it made me cry because she gave me this fantastic thank you note, and all I was doing was thanking her for doing her job. And so I realized it's just that kind of little extra where you're watching someone make the whole operation better. And so I would, if I had any advice to leave you with, I would say just, if you do that little thing that helps your boss be better. And I think about that way with my bosses, Holden and the Chancellor. I mean, I don't, I try to think, how could I do it just a little bit better? And I bring, you know, ideas to my meeting with them that I have every 3 weeks. And sometimes it's stupid, but sometimes it's great. An example of that for me in my own life is something you know about, Sherry, is Bill Tate and I were in a university council meeting after the events at Ferguson happened, and we thought of this idea to hold that university-wide event in February, the Day of Diversity and Dialogue, or Discovery and the Day of something. And that was just something totally out of the box that we thought of, but our bosses loved it. And now, of course, we're chairing steering committees, we're doing a lot of other stuff. But that's an example of kind of trying to think of something that addresses a problem that maybe your boss isn't in the right position to address. Well, this was a lot of fun. Thank you.